For sure. Well, thank you for reaching back out. I'm looking forward to getting into the new book, so thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Well, thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. But, the thing that's interesting about this book is that it's kind of like when you look at the Star Wars franchise. Everything starts somewhere, I mean, Darth Vader was this cute little kid, and then he saw all this
Yeah,
stuff. So there's always this precursor because the last time we spoke, we had the story, the,
right.
the the main story, and now we find out about how we get to that story from your family perspective.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so let me start this with, was there always a vision that this was going to be a multiple book set?
No, actually, there was only ever supposed to be the one book.
Yeah.
The irony is that, I'd never written a book before. I had a degree in journalism. I studied psychology. I had all this stuff. So I just wrote. And it was funny because when I started interviewing with publishers, I was basically trying to cover from birth to, 40 some years. And that's a big chunk of time to try to have an actual story that readers could stay engaged in and understand the complexities of it, because there's so many layers to, I mean, to our psyche and to abuse and trauma and all this stuff. So no, it was funny because I think the word count alone with what I originally wrote could have been six or seven normal size books,
Yeah.
but the publisher that I went with, which had been my first choice anyway, so I'm glad we picked each other. She sort of helped me narrow the focus and narrow it down to, I guess the real juicy stuff and where we were at then. But after that book came out, Gasping for Air, which talked about my 25-year relationship with my first husband and the toxicity and the abuse and narcissism, it really just sparked all this, inquiry from readers and on social media about, well, how does somebody end up like that? Like, how does this happen? And there's all these questions about red flags. That's one of the most common things people ask is, what are
Yeah.
the red flags? How do I avoid this? And what I even realized in doing my own research into my own life and into this idea is that it's not about red flags in the other person, it's red flags in ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's where we came up with this idea that, let's go back into that writing. Let's go back into, because something happened. And I'm like, oh, yeah, a whole lot happened. And it absolutely basically primed me for my people pleasing, codependency, all these tendencies I had to just do whatever I needed to do to make sure people were pleased with me. Because what does a narcissist want is subservience.
Yeah.
They want to be the one and only, the focus of everything. And so it worked quite well until it didn't.
So, so your first book was something that's brought, I'm sure, you some level of healing,
Yes.
other people healing, but you
Yes.
still have to write that and relive it. So how did you get through reliving the beginning? I mean, because I've been in that position of writing things out, and it's like, wow, when you really get in there, you're unearthing things that you may have therapeutically dealt with or buried. So how did you actually get to a point where it wasn't too painful? How much start and stop went into this?
A lot.
Yeah.
And I actually appreciate that question because this was something I expressed to people, in my personal life, that it was excruciating and awful to write this book. And actually, even up until the end, it was just released, barely 2 weeks ago. Well, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And even the publisher was like, you're not as excited about this one. And I said, it gives me an icky feeling, for lack of better words. I
Yeah.
didn't have a better word for it, but writing it, I had some writing done. I wrote more, but she kept pushing me. That's what I love about writing. The publisher, when they're reading through the content, they're pushing me. Well, go deeper there. Take us into that scene. They're like really pushing me to my limit mentally and emotionally because yes, you do to at least the way I write, I want people to see and hear and taste and feel not just physically, but emotionally. I want them to be there with me. And I've gotten a lot of compliments on that. But for me to do that, I do have to literally, I mean, we say relive it as if it's this easy thing, but I was getting migraines and stomach pains and I mean, I would get sweaty and anxious, like that panicky feeling
Yeah.
and I mean, I remember a few times I had to take a few days and I would just be in bed, like
Yeah.
just depressed. And I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. This is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. There were a few points, not that I contemplated suicide, but where I was having some of those same feelings I had as a teenager, because I was writing about them where I started to feel that worthlessness again and like, why am I here? And nobody cares and all that stuff that we tell ourselves. And I had worked so hard to not be that way and to come to a place of self-worth and self-respect. So honestly, I mean, full disclosure, I thankfully had somebody reach out to me that I met through another podcast, and she said, this is what I do. And we had connected because we had very similar experiences. And I said, okay, I said, I'm actually going to wave the white flag because this book is just breaking me. I thought I was okay, but I'm nowhere near okay. And this book brought it all up. So much so that even at the end, I normally before, when we finalize everything, before we hit the button that puts it out into the world, I normally read it front to back, full through as if I were an objective reader, reading it for the first time. And this time I was like, I mean, not that I didn't care, but I'm like, I can't and I don't want to. And if there's a typo, if I don't like some, I just don't even care. I just want to be done with it.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it's getting, I'm getting good feedback,
Yeah.
positive feedback. So it is what it is. But yeah, it's definitely put me through some stuff again, much more so than the first book.
So there's a literal and a figurative way that you have to journey through putting your story on paper. And I would think at the end of it, you come up with these revelations or there's realizations. Because it's one thing to live it. You think,
Yeah.
okay, I got it. I've compartmentalized it. I got it. But what did you ultimately learn about this process that was either revelatory or overly positive that you didn't expect? If it
You know, it,
exists.
well, it does. And what's interesting is that there's a lot there, and what caught me was you said the word revelations. I'm actually working on finalizing book 3, which is the sequel to Gasping for Air, which kind of talks more about all this healing and brings the first 2 books full circle. And I have a part 1 and part 2, and part 2 of the sequel is called Revelations
Oh, okay.
because I'm sharing that, it's interesting that even after the childhood and even through the first marriage and understanding and being fully aware of how my childhood impacted me and particularly it's a mother issue. um I still saw it's kind of like how the universe just keeps banging you over the head with the same lesson until you finally learn it. And so that's where the sequel comes into place. Like the universe is still like, come on, Dana, like you get it, but you're not getting it. And I think that's the thing is that, and that would be my answer is that we think we figured it out. We think we're okay, but really we're just distracted. But when you finally figure it out, when you finally get with the right therapy or the right, you have that big epiphany, that big moment where like, oh my God, it is still, I mean, I'm 48 and I'm still excavating, crap from when I was 3. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, my goodness gracious. But I'm glad to say that I've made so much more progress. And that's why the sequel is coming along very well and why I have this part 2 of Revelations, because I want people to benefit and maybe save some time if they can and not waste so many years harping on the same old story that we tell ourselves because we've internalized what other people tell us about ourselves instead of living in, on our own and in our own authenticity.
So what would be the ultimate, if you could have a genie in the bottle that would give you the ultimate therapeutic pill to deal with all of this that you've lived with? Would you like to be at a point where one day someone's like, "Oh, I didn't realize that about you"? Would there be some kind of level of not complete amnesia, but a way of just like it's over with, and that part of my life is done and I'm here. What would be your therapeutic dream?
That is interesting. Yes, when I realized I needed a little more therapy than I thought I did, and I went back into it, with this book, she asked me what my intention was, and I said, here's the thing. I literally live in the past every single day of my life, writing about it, podcasting, speaking, in public forums about it, doing this, advocating about. I said, I just want to be in the present. I just want to live for now because I
Yep,
can't be in the present moment and be today's Dana and live this Dana's life because I'm always back there.
yep,
And so I want to get to a place where I can still work my mission, advocate, talk about it, but still live in the present
yep.
because I'm a different person now. I have a different perspective, different mindset. I'm only improving. It's only getting better, but I want to be able to be at peace with all that and just kind of, like you said, say it happened. It made me who I am. And honestly, it put me exactly where I am. And I'm grateful for it. And I would never change it, even though it wasn't exactly what I would have wanted my life to be. But I think you just have to get to a place where you can just be
Yeah.
exactly where you are and what you are.
So almost as though you have to put kind of a shield around you and protect yourself because you have to put the story out to help others, but you also get the chance to be an existentialist and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's an all awkward thing. I mean, I
Yeah,
joke with people that I sometimes have imposter syndrome
yeah,
because, I present as this, perfect, example of what life looks like and what you can be after abuse and trauma. Yet there are still days that I'm in fetal position in bed that my husband's just trying to get me to take a shower because I've been in same clothes for 2 days. So,
yeah,
but I think that's part of it that I
yeah.
want to impress upon people is there is no perfect healing. There is no perfect journey. Your fairy godmother's not going to wave a magic wand over you and everything's not going to be better. You're going to be better and you're going to live a good life and you're going to be at peace and you're going to be able to live for the present and accept joy in your heart. But you're still going to have those moments. And that doesn't mean you're not making progress or you're not okay. It just means you're human. And I think we need to all start forgiving ourselves for being human because nobody's perfect.
So if Hollywood approached you and wanted to make this into a movie or a show, could you actually give it the blessings and see it on the big screen unfold, see your life projected to millions of people?
I could. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I have actually had a couple mentions of Netflix, and somebody said they gave my book to a particular actor who has a production company. That happens all the time, though, so I don't get excited about that stuff, and it's not like some goal, but I wouldn't be bothered by it. I
Okay.
wouldn't want anyone to be hurt by it because I do try to be careful with my content because my intent is to help people that have been in similar situations so they don't feel alone and also to give them the verbiage and the mental clarity that they might not get on their own. My intent is not to hurt the people that have done what they've done to me or that are in my life and might be affected by me exposing what has happened.
So for all these people that have done these things to you, have you found a place to forgive them?
You know, I forgiveness is a funny thing. Gasping for air, which talked about my ex-husband. I can say I don't hate him. I don't wish him ill. I just want to live my life and I wish him well in living his and I would leave it at that, but I'm at peace with it.
Yeah.
Where I can read parts of the book and I actually crack up, which might be a little strange, but I think that's a good sign that, I'm not crying over it. I'm not affected by it. I'm indifferent, and that's a good place to be. This book about my childhood, Choking on Shame, struck me a lot deeper than I expected. So we're getting there. I think I have definitely worked on, I don't know if I'd call it forgiveness necessarily, but I accept what my mother and stepfather did and continue to do. I mean, we're estranged, but I think it's a matter of accepting that this is how it was, and that again, it made me who I am, and I can't hate her or him
Yeah.
and then still love myself because I'm a part of that. I'm a product of them. So, it's an interesting thing. I just try to work on me and not worry so much about what my obligations or, having to do some certain thing with other people. It's about me. So I try to keep that focus.
So, Choking on Shame, if anyone wants to pick up a copy or of your previous book and anything in your world that they can indulge in, how can they do that?
DanaSDiaz.com. Links for the book are there. Facebook, Instagram links are there. You can email me directly from the site. Or most people, like me, love Amazon. So you can go on Amazon. If you have the app for Kindle, you can get the ebook. And I appreciate anybody who leaves a review as well.
Excellent. Dana, great to catch up with you. Best of luck with everything. It's wonderful. It's such a great healing journey. So I'm glad we reconnected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Take care.